Welcome to the last part of Nutrition 2. These are the types and nutrients and their impact on growth. Essential nutrients are those that the body cannot synthesize by itself but are required for bodily functions. These should be obtained from the diet, like vitamins, minerals, certain amino acids, and fatty acids. Non-essential nutrients are those naturally produced by the body. Therefore, these nutrients need not be supplemented in the diet. Essential nutrients are further classified as type 1 and type 2 nutrients based on their effects on anthropometric parameters. Type 1 nutrients include vitamins, iron, and calcium, the deficiency of which does not cause growth failure. However, once the body's reserves are depleted, they cause specific signs and symptoms. Type 2 nutrients include sodium, potassium, zinc, amino acids, sulfur, and phosphorus. Mild deficiencies of type 2 nutrients can lead to stunting in children, and more severe deficiencies can cause wasting as these nutrients are not stored in the body. Nutrients can also be classified as macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are nutrients required by the body in large amounts, many grams per day, like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, provide energy for growth during childhood. Evidence has emerged that while inadequate protein causes reduced linear growth, excessive protein intake during infancy and the early years may increase the risk of obesity in later life. Micronutrients are required by the body in minute amounts or less than 1 gram per day. Micronutrients such as vitamin A, folate, iron, iodine, and zinc are essential to sustain life and for optimum physiologic functioning. Deficiencies in micronutrients are linked to poor growth, intellectual impairment, and increased risk of morbidity and mortality. Vitamins are needed for body functions and metabolism. Deficiencies are not common but may be present in more impoverished areas. We will discuss vitamin deficiencies in excess like vitamin A, D, E, and K for the fat-soluble vitamins and vitamin B complexes as well as vitamin C. For vitamin A or retinol, it is fat-soluble and heat-stable. Bile is necessary for its absorption. It is stored in the liver and protected by vitamin E. The biochemical action in vision is used for synthesis of visual pigments, in growth for reproduction, embryonic and fetal development, bone growth, immune and epithelial functions. In immunity, it regulates innate and cell-mediated immunity. Deficiencies can lead to nyctalopia, photophobia, xerophthalmia, and Bitot spot. Keratomalacia leading to blindness, adverse effects on mucosal integrity leading to increased invasive respiratory and gastrointestinal and ocular infections. Excess can cause anorexia, slow growth, hyperostosis, and pseudotumor cerebri. Sources are liver, dairy products except skimmed milk, egg yolk, green vegetables, yellow fruits, and vegetables. For vitamin D or cholecalciferol, it is also fat-soluble and heat-stable. It is necessary for gastrointestinal absorption of calcium and mediates bone resorption. Deficiencies can lead to rickets in growing children, osteomalacia, and seizure. Excess can cause emesis, anorexia, pancreatitis, hypertension, arrhythmias, and nephrolithiasis. Sources are exposure to sunlight, fish oil, and egg yolks. For vitamin E, also is fat soluble. It is readily oxidized by oxygen and bile is also necessary for its absorption. It is used as an antioxidant. It reduces damage to lipid membranes caused by the formation of reactive oxygen species. Deficiency can lead to red cell hemolysis in premature infants, posterior column and cerebellar dysfunction, impaired humoral and cellular immunity, impaired T and B cell function. Excess is still unknown, while sources are vegetable oils, seeds, nuts, green leafy vegetables, and margarine. Vitamin K is needed for coagulation factors 2, 7, 9, and 10. Deficiency can lead to hemorrhagic manifestations. Vitamin B1 or thiamine deficiency can cause beriberi. There are two types. The dry or the neurologic type causes irritability, peripheral neuritis, and muscle tenderness, as well as ataxia. For the wet type or the cardiac beriberi can cause tachycardia, edema, cardiomegaly, and cardiac failure. Causes of deficiency may be due to polished rice, malabsorptive state, malignancies, and alcoholism. Sources are meat, unmilled rice, and cereals. Vitamin B2 or riboflavin can cause glossitis and cheilosis. Here are the causes of deficiency and sources. Vitamin B3 or niacin, when deficient, causes pellagra. Pellagra manifesting as diarrhea, symmetric scaly dermatitis in sun-exposed areas, and neurologic symptoms of disorientation and delirium. Causes are predominantly corn-based diets. Here are the sources. Pantothenic acid or vitamin B5, when deficient, causes irritability, fatigue, numbness, and paresthesia. Here are the sources of vitamin B5. Vitamin B6 or pyridoxine, when deficient, cause irritability, convulsions, hypochromic anemia, failure to thrive, and oxaluria. Causes may be due to prolonged treatment with isoniazid and penicillin. Here are the sources of vitamin B6. Cobalamin or vitamin B12, when deficient, cause megaloblastic anemia, irritability, developmental delay, developmental regression, involuntary movements, and hyperpigmentation. Causes are vegan diet, malabsorptive state, or Crohn's disease. Biotin, when deficient, cause scaly periorificial dermatitis, conjunctivitis, alopecia, lethargy, hypotonia, and withdrawn behavior. Causes are consumption of raw eggs for prolonged periods of time. Folic acid, when deficient, cause megaloblastic anemia, growth retardation, leucitis, and neural tube defects. Causes may be due to malnutrition and malabsorptive states. Vitamin C or ascorbic acid is important for collagen synthesis, metabolism of cholesterol and neurotransmitters, antioxidant functions, and non-heme iron absorption. It also regulates the immune system. Deficiency can lead to scurvy and low resistance to disease. Causes of deficiency may be due to predominantly milk-based diets. Sources are citrus fruits, berries, melons, tomatoes, cauliflowers, and green leafy vegetables. These are the micronutrients like minerals and trace elements. Requirements vary according to age, sex, stage of growth, pregnancy, and lactation. It is used for structural components, enzyme systems, and nerve impulses, as well as muscle contraction. Growth is limited with severe iron, vitamin A, and zinc deficiencies. For phosphorus, for zinc, deficiency can lead to growth failure, impaired wound healing, and impairment of phagocytic activity and natural killer cell activity. These are the sources for zinc. For magnesium, deficiency can lead to irritability, dysrhythmia, emotional tension, depression, and muscle weakness. Here are the sources for magnesium. For manganese, these are the deficiencies, excess, and their sources. For copper, deficiency can lead to anemia, anorexia, edema, growth retardation, and depigmentation of hair and skin. Here are the sources for copper. For chromium, deficiency can lead to impaired glucose tolerance, peripheral neuropathy, and encephalopathy. For selenium, deficiency can lead to fatigue, hypothyroidism, reproductive disorders, myopathy, cardiomyopathy, oxidative stress, and increased redox signaling. Affects immune cell activation and proliferation as a phagocytosis. Here are the sources of selenium. For potassium, deficiency can lead to muscle weakness, irritability, disorientation, and arrhythmias. Sources can be from dried beans, green leafy vegetables, bananas, oranges, cantaloupes, raisins, fish, shellfish, eggs, and dairy. For iodine, this is a component of the thyroid hormone. Deficiency can lead to hypothyroidism. Excess can also cause goiter. Maternal excess may cause congenital hypothyroidism and goiter. Sources are saltwater fish and iodized salt. For iron, it is a component of hemoglobin, myoglobin, cytochromes, and other enzymes necessary for normal immune system development. It influences bacterial virulence and host antimicrobial defenses. Deficiency can lead to anemia, decreased alertness, impaired learning, impaired neutrophil and natural killer cell mediated immunity, and impaired T cell proliferative responses. Excess during the acute phase can cause nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and hypotension, while chronic, usually secondary to hereditary disorders or organ dysfunctions. Here are the sources for iron. What are the dietary risk factors associated with specific nutrient deficiencies? For example, iron deficiency can be caused by breastfeeding without supplemental iron, early introduction of cow's milk or evaporated milk, use of low iron infant formulas, delayed introduction of iron-rich solid foods beyond 6 months, and low intake of heme iron, or inadequate vitamin C intake. For folate deficiency, this may be due to diet poor in folate-containing foods such as dark green vegetables like broccoli, lettuce, spinach, and others, dried legumes like chickpeas, beans, lentils, and others, as well as fruits like papaya and avocado. For vitamin A, children with low intake of dairy products, eggs, beta-carotene, and poor nutritional status. For zinc deficiency, children with low intake of animal products and high intake of phytates. For iodine, low intake of foods containing iodine like seaweed, seafood, dairy products, especially milk, grain products like bread and eggs, iodized salt, and increased consumption of natural goitrogens. For vitamin B12, children with low maternal dietary intake and/or vitamin B12 status in nursing mother and consumption of strict vegan lacto-ovo-vegetarian diet. Calcium deficiency may be caused by early weaning from breastfeeding, low calcium diet, low intake of dairy or calcium fortified products, increased consumption of grains and certain green leafy vegetables, allergy to milk, and transition from breast milk or formula to soda, juice, or calcium poor soy drink. Vitamin D deficiency can be caused by strict vegan or vegan diet, poor intake of vitamin D fortified foods, or foods naturally high in vitamin D, like fatty fish, and poor dietary intake in mother. The other spectrum of malnutrition is overweight and obesity. There is increased risk of complication in childhood and also increased morbidity and mortality throughout adulthood. In the ASEAN, in the whole of Asia, obesity is projected in 2020 to be 24 million. In the ASEAN region, from 1990 to 2010, there's an increase from 1.2 million to 2.5 million obese children. Overweight and obesity is caused by an imbalance in the caloric intake and energy expenditure. There is more caloric intake and less of the energy expenditure. Environmental factors like level of food availability, preference for types of food, like fast foods, level of physical activity, and preference for types of activities, like gadget use or sedentary lifestyles. The body mass index is computed in weight in kilograms divided by meters squared. For example, a 6-year-old and 3-month-old male with a weight of 35 kilograms and a height of 1.2 meters will give you 24.3 kilogram per meter squared as the child's BMI. When plotting this BMI, the child would be marked at this point in the WHO chart, meaning that the child is obese. On physical examination, an overweight or obese child can have hypertension, acanthosis nigricans, suggesting insulin resistance, hirsutism, suggesting polycystic ovary syndrome for female, and Tanner staging can reveal premature adrenarche secondary to advanced sexual maturation. Here is the photo of the acanthosis nigricans. There are different types of obesity. This is constitutional overweight as depicted by the height for age and weight for age for boys. This is exogenous obesity. And this is pathologic obesity. The obesity-associated comorbidities are as follows: dyslipidemia, hypertension, asthma, obstructive sleep apnea, gallbladder diseases, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, type 2 diabetes mellitus, metabolic syndrome, and polycystic ovary syndrome. It can also cause tibia vara or severe bowing of tibia, knee pain, and limping, musculoskeletal problems, anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and pseudotumor cerebri. There are three forms of intervention. It is multimodal, a combination of nutritional advice, exercise, and cognitive behavioral approaches. For the nutritional advice, these should be the recommended caloric intake ingested by age and gender. For example, a 10-year-old child who has a total caloric requirement of 2,000 kilocalories per day consumes 3,500 kilocalories per day. A reduction of 280 kilocalories per day or 2 cans of high carbohydrate beverage can decrease the risk of obesity for this child. We can use the traffic light diet plan in the management of overweight and obesity. For the red traffic light diet plan, these are high in calories, sugar, and fat. These are usually foods that are fatty meats, sugar, and fried foods. It should be avoided or infrequent. For the yellow traffic light diet plan, these are nutrient-dense but higher in calories and fats, like lean meats, dairy, starches, and grains. It should be limited in amount. For the green traffic light diet plan, these are low-calorie, high-fiber, low-fat, nutrient-dense food, examples of which are fruits and vegetables, and are unlimited. For exercise like walking to school, engage in physical activity during leisure time can be done for overweight and obese children. Family physical activities are also encouraged to decrease overweight and obesity. For the cognitive and behavioral intervention with children with overweight and obesity, attention to eating patterns and planned family meals, and meaning all members of the family should be involved. Also, impose where food may be consumed. Usually, food should be consumed at the dining table and not anywhere or in front of the TV or elsewhere. Screen time not more than 2 hours per day for children more than 2 years old, and no television for less than 2 years old, according to AAP. According to Spacer et al., these are the prevention for overweight and obesity. It starts during pregnancy, postpartum and infancy, involvement of families, awareness in schools, involvement of communities, and healthcare providers. Responsibilities of industry as well as government and regulatory agencies. In, in summary, an important attention to the food we give to infants and children, coupled with excellent feeding practices, ensure good nutritional status. However, when these are not done, the infant or the child may have undernutrition or obesity on the other extreme. To detect and diagnose this, proper measurements and appropriate use of the WHO charts should be done. To prevent these problems, prevention is the key, but if these are already evident in the child, a proper intervention should be done. These are the references for this online session. Thank you.